estate. Before I get started here, I always like to put my disclaimer, just not to confuse anyone that are tapping in or that are watching or that are listening to the sounds of my voice. My name is Layla Lockwood, your favorite trustee. For those that are like, just joining, just new here, maybe someone invited you, shared this information with you. I wanted to talk about this particular topic because it's so crucial, it's so important for those that may be like, maybe I don't need a trust. Maybe I don't know what's important now, how to get started, where do I start? Because maybe in their lifetime, they're young and they're trying to go through this process of like maybe owning something for the first time, starting a business for the first time. And if you were positioning yourself where you start protecting your assets first, listening to this presentation, you're in the best position. Put my disclaimer here, you guys, to protect myself or to protect the person speaking. This disclaimer states any information material shared with you in this video is to offer you guidance. It is for educational purposes only. In no way do we promote fraud, deceit, or offensive content. I shall not be held liable for any conduct or any content for any party viewing this video and any decision made based on such information. And just to sum this up a little bit more, because I'm not an attorney, I'm an economic activist, I'm an advocate. I will be sharing this information with you. I may periodically stop and put a disclaimer here again. And just by reminding you guys that you guys are here under your own will, on your own recognizances, and that you're learning this information as you go. You may always stop, log into credible resources, contact an attorney. That is your right. But being here is learning this information, and hopefully that we share information that other legal counterparts don't share or other legal agents do not share. Okay. So tonight or today, anytime that you're watching this, I want to talk about the estate of, and you could put your name there. You can write in your notes. We want to put Jane Doe or John Doe. So we want to talk about the estate. And the reason why I wanted to go into detail of talking about this particular subject is because a lot of news or, just in the media, we hear, so-and-so passed away, a legend passed away, a pioneer in the music industry, actor, actress. And we're seeing these things and sometimes these people are either deceased or some are still alive. Like, for an example, Wendy Williams is coming out with a documentary and she's still alive. But right now, she don't have access and she has no control over her estate. So prayerfully that, I'll be able to help break this down into why we see things, why we hear things in reference to when someone passed away, family are fighting, courts, probate, trying to get control over the decedent's estate. All right. So let's break this down. If you don't know the legal definition of an estate, your estate consists of everything that you own or may be titled in your name. It could be your car, home, other real estate, right? It could be businesses, it could be cash, it could be checking account, savings account, investment accounts, life insurance, businesses, furniture, personal possession, you name it. Sometimes people may say, I put this in so-and-so name. For those that may, do street pharmaceutical type of activity, right? I've seen a lot of people that were hustling in the game and they will always say, I don't want nothing in my name, but they'll put all the assets, bank account, businesses, they'll put it in their baby mama name. They'll put it in their mama name, right? They'll put it in a girlfriend name, even in that matter, because their mindset is saying, I don't want to show on paper that I own something. They want to operate in privacy. But even if you owe loans, mortgages, credit cards, utility bills, taxes, etc., the biggest reason to have an estate planning in place prior to passing away, right, is because it offers a peace of mind for those that you love, right? You want to have you want to have rights to decide what happens with your assets upon your demise or prior to your demise. Do not leave it in the hands of the courts. This typically happens a lot. Someone may pass away and then everything just freezes. Bank account freezes. They may even lose the business. I've seen some business owners, homeowners, they're, shutting their business down, or family are forced to shut the business down, close the bank account, or maybe it's frozen. Maybe it's repossessed. Maybe there's a levy or lien on assets. And a lot of people don't understand why, because maybe you're looking at your loved one, or maybe you're that person is saying, I am a multimillionaire. I have all these things in my name, and everything that I'm doing, rather if it's just the concept, the thought, when I get up in the morning, I have motivation that I'm doing this for my children. I'm doing this for my loved ones. I'm doing it for something or someone. But when someone passes away, and I'm going to utilize and mention maybe people that we know, like Aretha Franklin or Michael Jackson or Prince, or just because I don't want to, put death upon no one, right? But it's very important that we talk about these things prior to something happening, because most of the time we see it in the news. We see it that, wait, they had a lot of money. Wait, they can afford an attorney. They can afford to put these things in place prior to death. But what if I told you they just don't have the plan in place? They may have the intentions, but it's nothing written out. Or even when it comes to death or being incapacitated, which one would you want to leave for your family? The assets, the liability, or the responsibilities? Most of the time, because they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the information, because they had liabilities in their name, maybe they were the breadwinners, maybe they were the responsible parties for other people, maybe they were young or underage. And even if they had bills, debt, and wealth all put together in a form of the estate, let's say it's all in a pot together, right? Most of the time, they're stuck trying to figure it out. That's why I always say, which one are you leaving to your loved ones? Because sometimes we don't even understand. Wait, why are you taking the house? If I have to take on the house, right? If you're leaving assets to your loved ones and they say, well, I'll take over the estate, even if you had a will, if you didn't have a will, I'll be the executor. I'll open it because maybe I'm the wife, or I'm gonna say widower, right? I'm the widower. Maybe I'm the wife, the children, or the parents in that matter. But most of the time, the state is going to hand you over the asset, and then you have the debt obligation connected to it. If you ever seen or heard this case before where you're like, I did take on grandmama's house, but I had to pay the taxes, I had to pay the mortgage, I had to pay this. In some cases, guess what happens? They don't even take the asset out their name. They're still paying the light bill. They're still paying the cell phone bill. They're paying debt obligations on a decedent's name. And can I tell you that it is illegal that you have an account open for a deceased person? When that person passes away, that contract becomes breach. And then the way that that contract became breached in the event of death. This is why death certificates are requested to be shared or sent, or, send a copy in order to settle out the account. Now, in certain situations, unexpected death happens or incapacitations happen. It could be separations or legal problems. Cannot be predicted and will result in serious challenges for your loved ones or your heirs. If you don't know what the heirs are, that means the person that is related to you that is now in that position to receive the inheritance. But if you're not prepared, right, we don't know. We're on borrowed time. So when they say we don't know, life is not guaranteed, but death is guaranteed. So when I put these situations here where maybe it's not in the event of death, right? What if someone have a near-death experience? You ever hear this terminology? Like, oh, wait a minute. I almost got into a car accident. I need to call my life insurance policy. I need to check on this. I need to get my affairs in order. Or something that happened, a whole natural disaster. The statistics says that 33% increase of people running out going to go get estate planning. They went to maybe an attorney, lawyer, right? They got it drawn up, and then guess what? It said 31%, and please fact check me, go back if I might be off a little bit on numbers, but 31% didn't do anything about it. So now you have people that have all these legal documents drawn up, and it's just sitting there. It has empty trust. They don't have the wills properly assigned to whom, what, or what have you, because they don't have the knowledge. Now, if you go through a separation, let's say you write out your last testament. You're young, maybe you married, maybe you're not. Maybe you just say, I have the ideal in mind that I'm going to do this for someone. But then there's a separation or there's a legal problem. Maybe the person that you're leaving the asset to don't know how to handle or manage money. Because these things are not predicted, you don't know if you leave every asset to your loved one and then they go and face challenges. They get sued. Now, the very house that you left them, it gets taken from them. And we've seen this in cases where they say, wait a minute, I'm about to get sued. Let me just hurry up and move it really quickly. Put it in my mama's name, put it in a cousin name, just temporarily. And then they get hit with something. Or maybe in a worst case scenario, they may suddenly die. One of the most vital challenges faced is by not having a plan in place. Is having your instructions written down or making the transition of your assets for ongoing generations a simple process. I hear a lot of people say, it's just not that easy, right? It's more complicated than you think, pushing fear on people. But did you know that Aretha Franklin wrote out some instructions on who gets a house, who gets some assets, who gets some of the records and royalties? She wrote it in a spiral book with a pencil or ink pen. I don't want to be that. I want to be detailed, but not that detailed. I wasn't sure if it was a pencil or a pen, but guess where they found it? They found it in the crevices of a couch that was approximately 3 to 4 years old. Think about that. So if they're saying that it's complicated, I'm saying that at least start somewhere by writing it down. Your wishes. But we can take it a step further because a will is just a wish. But if you want to ensure, you want to start thinking about estate planning and that is not based on your age, your wealth status, or health conditions. Some people say, wait, I'm too young. I don't need to be thinking about that right now. Or I don't have enough money. They ain't going to get nothing, right? But I keep trying to explain to people that you are the value. You might not think you have valuable assets that are connected to you. What if I told you that even by setting up your estate plan, you can protect your name by someone else not benefiting off of your death? Did you know that death is a big business? Think about the health conditions, health complications. Some doctors, and I'm not going to say all because I don't want to sound biased and I don't want to sound like, people that go to the hospital that they're not getting the help. But I have witnessed, right? You go in and they say, what are your symptoms? How long have you been experiencing this? And they go on Google, right? And then they tell you, oh, well, you're experiencing COVID. They just put this on you, right? Within the last 3 to 5 years, just what I just did. If you had some type of cough or couldn't breathe for a second, you got COVID. So now they try to give you all types of diagnosis and medication prescriptions, right? And sometimes you look at the risk warning label. You're getting treated for one thing, but then how about the medication or the pharmaceutical products may be causing harm to another organ or something in your body? So the main reason is because you're not informed. The reason that people don't have estate planning in place, and I'm going to continue to talk about estate planning because it's not just setting up a will. It's not just having a trust in place. It's really understanding that each and every day that we engage in business, rather if we go to school and have a student loan, we go to the hospital and draw up a medical bill, or even if we just go to work and we're building up a 401k, maybe pension, maybe payroll, right? Because we are human resources, that the business cannot operate without your human activity, your body. But we all know that as a human being, we going to experience death. That is what's guaranteed. What's not guaranteed is your position at work. So even if you have a job, we cannot pass the jobs down to our loved ones. So that's why the main reason that people don't have estate planning in place, because they're uninformed, or they don't get a chance to learn about estate planning by dealing with a lost loved one. And then when it comes to the estate, that's when you in your education moment, right? You like, wait a minute, I just lost a family member. How do we get these things? And in that moment, by your activity, by under the stress, the duress of you're just trying to survive or carry on or live out maybe their legacy, because you know your loved one more than the state knows them. But they're going to tell you and they're going to control and dictate what you are already entitled to. But if you don't have it written down, who and how would they know? Drop some fire in the chat if you're picking up what I'm dropping. I'm in the zone right now, and I just want to make sure that you're following me so far. And hopefully you guys are taking notes, because some things that I may say could be trigger moments, right? It could be, oh my goodness, I experienced that. I know this too well, but I just don't understand the beginning sides or the beginning of how to avoid the stress, how to avoid the unnecessary fight when I don't know the legalese. See, I'm not going to sit here and talk all big words and legal jumble mumble. And I'm not saying that it's not important. But what I am trying to share with you is that maybe we can visualize an experience of when someone passed away. Within the 24 hours, we may come over one person's house. We may laugh and talk about memories. But the first thing that we're trying to figure out is, how are we going to lay them to rest properly? And even if we're in position to afford it. Now, some religions are different, how you lay your loved ones to rest. But I can only speak on some experience with some of us has 72 hours to come up with approximately $7,000 to $10,000. And most families don't have it in the savings. Even if you don't have a life insurance policy, which we think that is the end all be all, most of the time the insurance policies don't kick in if they don't have the autopsy, they don't have the reports, depending on how that person died. You have some situations where maybe the person passed away in another state and it's out of their jurisdiction, and they got to fly the body back, bring the body back if you have some type of military background, or maybe you was on a vacation. And like I said, in certain situations, somebody died in a plane crash. These are important topics and situations and scenarios to just discuss, because we don't know when, right? But it's still important, because if suddenly you become incapacitated and unable to manage your own affairs, your beneficiaries will not be able to access money to pay your bills, because you only get the money once the person died. So, you were told, leave your loved ones as beneficiaries. But did anybody tell you that beneficiaries only benefit? They can't control, they can't manage, they cannot make changes, they cannot protect the wealthy assets. They have to wait. And guess what? Only if you die. That's the position of a beneficiary. But what if you didn't die? What if you may have lost, maybe you're partially brain damaged? And I'm not saying you, I'm giving examples here, right? Maybe you are at an old age and you start going through dementia. I get that word kind of tongue twisted, right? Or you're in a vegetative state. You're on life support is what they call it, when it's really death support. They're only supporting you until the death. It's not to bring you back to life. In some situations and miracles and signs and wonders, it does happen, right? They say, and this happened in my family, true story. My grandfather, he did pass away. But my grandmother had to pull the plug. And guess what? He woke up. So it's not on the doctor's time, your time. It's on God's time. We don't know, right? But let's just talk about the incapacitated part first. You have bank accounts. You have maybe direct deposit. I'll even go there. And you may have, I'll even say, a situation where real estate, some properties, you have tenants in all your houses. Let's go. Let's please visualize this with me, you guys. You're incapacitated. You're going to require signatures. You're going to require some type of communication. We don't know how long you're incapacitated. Your memory could go as far as you like. But you have tenants in this property and they need signatures. You need to deposit these checks if they're not systematically transferred to your bank account, if it's not automated. And no one is there to even continue to run this operation. So you see where I'm going with this, why it's so important to have something in place where you have to have digital signatures. You don't need to be present. You have your family had the education. What about that? Think about if you have a business, you guys, or maybe you in real estate, and maybe I'm speaking to someone right now. Think about, are you in position right now that if something was to happen, that it will continuously smoothly operate? Most of the time, your tenants are evicted. Your family don't know how to pay taxes. Maybe you have some properties that are still under mortgage contracts. The mortgage company's not going to speak to you because you're not the account holder. The banks are not going to say anything because they can't release any private personal information to someone that is not on the account. So now what's happening is you're losing assets and you're still living because you're in a position where you cannot manage your own affairs. But you got beneficiaries and they can't do anything because they're waiting for you to die. And I'm not saying that that's what they're waiting on, but they can't benefit unless you're no longer here. So now we have to write some things out as a just in case scenario. What if, and here's another gem I'm gonna throw in there. What if you're incarcerated? So that's not saying like, well, incapacitated meaning maybe you're not coherent enough, but what if you just don't have access? What if you're stuck in another country and your flight got, canceled and your card's not working and your phone and don't have no reception? These are things that we need to think about when you need some immediate help, when someone can come in and manage your affairs and pick off where you left off. How far do you go as far as thinking of down in your lineage or how my loved ones and everything that I'm doing, it's not just benefiting me while I'm living? And I know I'm staying on this part really, lengthy, but I'm helping you guys in certain areas where it's like, man, I'm not even thinking about that. So now as bills are not getting paid because you don't have access to the bank account, you don't have access, maybe this person. So now you're getting late, you're getting 30-day late, 60-day late. Now you got bad credit. Now the accounts are closing. Now foreclosures is upon you. And then you're like, man, what do we do? So you need to have something in writing. And most of the times banks are going to say, you can have a POD. So this is in the case if a person is still living, right? Some people put transfers of death or pay on death, which is a TOD or POD. All you need to do is provide a death certificate or just some identification that the account holding institution, but guess what? If they have unpaid debts or unpaid taxes, the POD account may be subjected to creditors or the government. There's no protection on that account. You may be listed as to take over, but what if you take over the account and then you got all this account just getting hit, left to right, IRS hitting the account? You cannot stop it, right? Because man, they just did a bank levy. Because guess what you provided to get access of the POD or the TOD? The death certificate. And if anybody never took the class, trust versus will, it is so vital. Why? Because people don't even understand the certificate of death and death certificate are two different things. So the death certificate is bounced around as in these companies are getting their payday. Or they're freezing your account. And guess what the banks are doing? They're probably trading on the stock market because you don't have access. So it's very important, you guys. It's very, very important that we protect the account. I like to call it the front door and the back door. And I'm very proactive with asset protection. I always talk about irrevocable trust, but let me put my disclaimer here, you guys. I'm not, this does not constitute legal advice. I'm an advocate, so I advocate very, very much so of asset protection. But if you don't have the trust as the owner of the account and the trust as the beneficiary on the account. That's what I like to call the protection of the front door and back door. Just think about it right now. If you have a personal bank account and you may have direct deposit coming in, maybe you're getting, direct deposit from your merchant or, maybe a third party like Square app. I'm not okay. A Square or Zelle or maybe these things are direct, right? And you don't have a beneficiary on the bank account, then you're looking at all your wealth suddenly become a risk. For your family, they're not going to be able to have access to it because you don't have no one to come and protect the account. So this is why we say the trust should be 100% the owner on the account, and the trust should 100% be the beneficiary in the account. Do not put people as beneficiary on these types of accounts. And let's continue to explain why. So if you die without a will, your estate has a statute of limitations for contesting the will. So again, you guys, this is not directed to just one particular state. Please check your state, whatever state that you're watching from, or let's even say whatever state that you have assets in, because each state is foreign to one another. But let's just say blank amount of years that they have from the date of the decedent's death. This individual, well, this means that any individual or the individual must file a claim to contest the will within X amount of years or whatever the amount of years that is shown within your state of the decedent's passing, or they will lose the right to challenge the will. You get a lot of people say, wait a minute, because some people may set up a will, and I don't know if you still got your old elders still living, but some people say, I set up a will 45 years ago, 60 years ago. I'm like, excuse me, right? I wasn't born yet, so I know I'm not in there. Most elders or people that set up their wills or trusts or last testament, they don't update it, you guys. So even if you have your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren that has been born since the time that you set up your estate plan, most of them are not making changes. So then when that person passed away, they're like, I took care of grandmama. I took care of my uncle. I took care of my granddaddy. He told me that I get this, I get that. But then when they check it, they see, yeah, you've been taking them to doctor appointments. Yeah, you've been signing off for this. I see that you are power of attorney, right? But you only had the power when they were living. Unfortunately, they never updated. So then you try to contest it, but guess what? You didn't realize there was a statute of limitations. So now you lose to contest it. So it's important because a lot of people have unclaimed wealth that are sitting. Do you know how many deaths occurred during COVID? I'm going to say the pandemic, right? And there has been a lot of people that lost a lot, everything. Some people lost 2-parent homes because there were nothing written out. Unfortunately, the children were put in foster care. Maybe they were taken away from family and they've been displaced. A whole mess, all because of something that was not written and put in place. And this happens a lot and too often. So it's very important, you guys, to check your statute of limitations. You got, I promise you probably got some land, some houses, somebody passed away and nobody opened the estate. How about that? People are not opening the estate because they don't even know how. They don't know probate, they like, I'm not going down there. They're going to take everything or they're going through the fight for multiple years. If it's not months or sometimes it's years. You may get some of the assets. I'm not saying that probate will not release assets to you, but what I will say is probate role is to pay the debts first, pay the taxes first. Whatever you have left, crumbs or, whatever you have left, then your family get, then your kids will get. But in most cases, families get nothing, right? So picture this. If a person passed away, and this is sometimes how it goes down the in relatives or how your heirs can be broken down. You're leaving a spouse, somebody passed away, so they're leaving a spouse and they don't have no children. Then most likely, and this is all state dependent upon, okay? It's all dependent on states. So please check your state. As you watch this, you can pause it and check your state, all right? In the state of when leaving a spouse with no children, they get the entire estate. The entire estate goes to the spouse. That's if you're legally married, because a lot of people say, hey, I've been married to this person for Commonwealth, right? I've been with this person for 20 years. I automatically, no, we talk about if you're married to the state. You see how I word that? When you get married, I understand you love this person, but under oath, you and that person are married to the state. Okay. If one dies, leaving a spouse and children, then certain percentage of the property goes to your spouse and the remainder goes to the children. This is something that is like, it could get really ugly if you have blended families, if you have the surviving spouse quickly get remarried, right? And now it's like the husband living in, I'm gonna try to be messy really quickly, right? Let's say the husband passed away, left the house to the wife and children, but the husband has children coming into the marriage, and the husband and wife had children together. So now you got blended family, right? But then the wife gets remarried very quickly. So now the wife is sharing a house, right, with her new husband that the decedent of her ex-husband, or I'm gonna say widow husband, left the wife. So now the kid's like, you got this strange man living in my daddy house, right? And it gets so ugly that sometimes kids want to sell, but you have to think about it. It goes split to the children. And if you don't have the knowledge and you don't have the fight in you, most of the time, guess what people do? They sign off their rights. They release their interests, is what the term that they use. So it's important that you guys write things in specific. Hey, this house does not go to such and such and such and such. All right. But if one dies leaving neither a spouse nor children, then the entire estate goes to your parents. But what if you have no surviving parents, no children, no spouse, right? If you have no surviving family, then it goes to the state. And this is how sometimes you see people sitting in the tax lien office, or they sitting in the office, and some attorneys get, records, public record. And this is how other people get cheap houses or cheap land and things like that, because no one had something written in place, or they didn't have no family to leave it to. And that's another way you can, get some inheritance. You can buy some real estate, you can buy some land based on someone that did not know the knowledge. But don't let that be your family, okay? So when it comes to death, right, it's most of the time it's public record. So the reason why I talk about obituaries, because sometimes we put all these names in there just to kind of minimize drama, right? But do you know an obituary is utilized in court? So if it's not really your loved one, like it's really not your cousin, your aunt, like how some people like, and the surviving of this child, and the whole time it's like, that's just some old girlfriend child that they got close to, and they put these names in there. But guess what happens? And I'm gonna use an example, and I'm not saying this is exactly DMX case, but DMX had 15 children, and then there was like one child came out of nowhere, was like, no, that's my dad too, right? But you have situations where multiple families come out of the woodwork. But then if they put that name in there just to avoid a fight at the funeral, do you know that is used as public record in court? Because death can be public sometimes. And the funeral home puts it in the newspaper. Sometimes the state, county, state troopers, those, probate, have the family members that opened the estate put out an article in the newspaper, right? So an estate tax is most notable levied at a federal level. So you might not see it, right? It is charged to the decedent's estate before the heirs is passed to their beneficiaries. Some people are like, no, they gave us everything. We didn't get nothing taken out. Sometimes you don't even see it. The estate tax is levied by the government on the estates when you die and pass on your estates to your heirs. pass on your assets, pass on your assets to your heirs. So it's very important, you guys, that if you have anything that is valuable, you have something that is wealthy, that you feel as though that is valuable to you, because I can't tell you what's valuable to you and what's not. Transfer it out your name prior to death, because most of the time the state is getting theirs off the top. And let me just put my disclaimer here again, you guys. I am not a tax preparer. This is not constituting tax advice, financial advice. I am not a CPA, but I've seen this in most cases and just even reading up on it, right? This is why estate planning is important and having a trust in place, because what happens is it gives a tax benefit, a state tax benefit. If you have a house that's titled in the name of the trust, or a car, or business and all these different assets, then it's not coming out the estate, right? And you could pass it directly to your loved ones from the trust. But I'm gonna share with you why the proper process, or should I say how it's structured, can prevent and protect your heirs. So a bequest is the same terminology as gifting someone, is the same way as you're made as a part of in your will or in your trust. Hey, I want to gift. You want to make sure it's identified that it's a gift. You're passing it on to someone so it can have a tax benefit. Now, bequest can be to a person, or it can be to a charitable bequest, to a nonprofit organization, or it can be to a trust or foundation. So even if you're saying that I want to leave all this wealth to my children, to my husband, to my wife, or to my parents, it don't have to go in their name. It can go through a charitable donation, or it can go directly to the trust. Here's another example that you can look this up. Vanessa Bryant. Oh, I couldn't think of the last name. My apologies. Vanessa Bryant, Kobe Bryant's widow, his wife, right? When Kobe Bryant passed away, right? Something happened where they exposed like pictures or something of the scenery. I don't know the exact what happened. I want to say they took pictures of his body. That's what I want to say, but I want to say either the scene or the body, and it's got spread around. And his wife sued not only the Los Angeles County Police Department, she sued a couple people and she won the lawsuit. And in her lawsuit, she got about $16 million, right? And they asked, what she's going to do with the money. And she had them write it out to the Mambacita Foundation. But the Mambacita Foundation is connected to her and her children. So she had received tax-free $16 million because it was donated to a charitable nonprofit organization, or it was a donation to a foundation. So look that up, because these are strategic ways that you can keep the wealth in your family and you can minimize certain taxes and have certain tax benefits. But not all deaths are public, right? Or it's not announced in obituaries. Some families may choose to keep the information private. Obituaries, if you want to look it up, you guys, sometimes creditors or lawsuits, they look it up on legacy.com. There may be something called obituary.com, or they also looking in the newspaper, or they just put it in the person's name, address, they're assuming the date of birth or the date of death. And when you Google it, guess what? It comes right up as public record. So in these particular situations, you want to make sure that even if you're able to pull up a public death, you're not able to pull up public wealth. That makes sense? Drop a 1 in the chat. So when it comes to someone opening up the estate, taking over the estate of a decedent, they're called the executor. The executor must give a notice of the person's death, usually by publishing in a newspaper or sending letters directly to the creditors. So let's stop right there. If you want to leave your loved ones, or we're talking about if a person don't have a will, you guys, a will or a trust, right? For that matter, and they become the executor, do you know their role is they're sending letters directly to creditors? So now you just become a loved one that is left saying, hey, my loved one passed away, and here's their information that if we owe you something, I'm the person that's going to take care of it, right? So when they open the estate, there is a certain time frame, and again, that varies by state by state. That's why I said if you're listening to this video, watching this video, that make sure that you're calculating upon your state or the state that the person passed in, right? So it varies by state that the creditors generally have about 3 to 6 months to make their claim to be paid. Or if it's like 6 months and a day and they don't claim it, they don't file a claim, then guess what? It won't be paid. That person's not responsible. And I guess more money for that person. But why go through that unnecessary fight? Why put your family through that? That you got to find the debts of the person that they had during their lifetime. But I'll tell you my background, you guys. If you guys did not know, I'm an ex-collector, right? I used to actually own a collection agency. And at one point that we were going through another company and we were purchasing debt through the company. So when we purchased debt from Citibank, mortgage companies, we purchased bank from even payday loans, y'all, right? We don't know what this person owes this, but guess what? If we were to call a decedent's household, that is against the law. So we can't call you, right, and ask somebody to pay the debt because it's against the law to call a deceased person's home, and you cannot release unverified or a debt to someone that is not the actual debtor. We don't have that right at the time. I'm throwing out my quotations. At the time that we were debt collectors, we didn't have that right. But guess what they leave? It puts you in a position where your loved ones has to voluntarily contact the creditors. If they're not looking for you, you're looking for them. Who wants to do that? I know one thing. I know my kids, if they don't know nothing else, you will not be finding no people that I owe money, supposedly. We're going to say allegedly, because if I can't speak on that behalf, it's all an assumption, right? Because that contract was between you and the creditor. Now, there was an article that was put out, and this is another reason why this encouraged me to talk about this, that Verizon had sued this young man's, and this was the actor from Euphoria. I want to say the right name. Please forgive me. Let me try to pull it up. His name was Angus Clouds, right? And there was a phone bill that this young man, I'm assuming that it was a sudden death, right? And the phone bill was approximately $4,000. Now, what happens is if you have a person that passed away and they have an open cell phone account, you can't really call the company because you're not obligated. I mean, not obligated. You're not the account holder, so they cannot release information or share information. Sometimes they have like privacy codes and pins and all that to get through to talk to a representative. Now, at that moment, that means the bill is running up, right? Because they never probably cut the phone off. The bill is running up. No one notified the company that the person is deceased. And they probably didn't know how to open the estate to send over the death certificate to notify, hey, let's cut this account off. So then it ran up a bill. And then the company like, hey, this contract is perpetual. Most of the times when you sign a contract or an agreement, it is bonded by your signature. Whether you live or die, you're still bonded to that contract. And this is why a death certificate is issued to the companies in order for the companies to get paid. Rather, they file a claim, file an insurance claim to file for the losses. So that's why it's important when somebody say, I don't own anything. But what if a bill that you had in your name becomes payday when you pass away to another company? You can protect that by having a trust in place. Are y'all picking up what I'm dropping? I'm getting ready to close this out, you guys. I know I've been lengthy, but how does it look when you're putting an asset in your loved one's name after you pass away or prior to passing away, right? So I get a lot of people say, I'm building generational wealth. I'm building generational wealth. I have all these credit cards, y'all. I'm winning. I got all this money on credit. I'm leveraging credit. That means you're now creating traceable transactions, right? I'm going to use an example. American Express gives you American Express card. It has approximately $250,000 on its card. You go buy property with the credit card. So now you buy a house with credit. Now you have a mortgage and you have credit debt. So that's double debt on one asset, right? Then, not to mention, you probably put your kids on there as an authorized user. So now they mirroring your credit, right? Then you put some tenants in there. They're paying monthly, trying to pay your debt down, and then boom, suddenly death occur. But you put in paper that you want to put this in your child's name. How does this look? And how does this look for your child? And how does this look for the tenant when everything got to go back to its rightful owner? You still owe a mortgage. The credit card company get ready to say that $250,000, we see there's a trace on the house. We got to get that back. The mortgage say, wait a minute, we got to get that back. So then you got to owe two people with one asset. You trying to leave it to your kids, and then somebody living there. That person gets evicted. Do you see the disaster? And then that child's credit score then went down because they were reflecting your credit score. When it comes to leaving an asset to your loved one, it is, I'm going to say, highly encouraged. I can't legally advise you guys to do anything, but hopefully by this presentation, it opened your eyes and open your mind to how I should strategically participate in society. Because whether I know it or not, I'm business to other businesses. Whether if I have lots of money or not, I'm going to leave a legacy, but the legacy may end up being debt versus wealth, because I have to learn how to strategically write out how things are going to go, because I don't know whether if I live or die. But what I do know is if I put a trust in place and I leave the trust to my loved ones versus the asset, because let's look at it like this. You put the asset in the trust name, but then you put your loved ones as beneficiaries. But what happens when you inherit the house from the trust? But the trustee can administer your inheritance within days or weeks of the settler's death. This means you will receive the legal paperwork necessary for you to file the deed, and then you transfer the deed and put it in your name, now becoming the legal owner of the house. So now it goes from privately owned, ABC Family Trust was owning the house, but now you say, I want to leave it to John Doe or Jane Doe. So now it goes from private back to public. I like to say back on the market, right? Because guess what? You don't know if your loved one know how to manage wealth or if they have any debt. So now that the John Doe or Jane Doe now becomes the legal owner of the house, if the assets was private prior to death and you leave the assets in the individual's name, the asset is no longer private. Chances of passing it to multiple generations are slim because it went from the private family trust to now to one person. This is why the statistics are so high that only 2% receive inheritance. And then when it comes to passing to the second, the third, the fourth generation, you know, when you use the terminology, your children's children are slim to none. And if the person who inherits the assets, what if they get sued? Or what if they owe a lot of debt? Or what if they become incarcerated? Or what if they become incapacitated? Or what, even if that matter, they suddenly die? Boom, your whole legacy or the assets that you left behind did not make it past that first generation. So your goal is to think long-term when it comes to planning your estate. By placing assets into an irrevocable trust, you can safeguard them from creditors, lawsuit, and even certain tax liabilities. This protection ensures that your intended loved ones receive the inheritance. Most of the time, people receive the inheritance, but they don't receive 100% of the inheritance. The court, probate, lawyer fees, court fees, 2 to 3 years, 5 years sometimes, taxes, right? Then you get what's left behind. So that's not ensuring that your loved ones received it. They get what's left. But when you have a trust in place, they get first control, right? So this protection ensures that the intended loved ones receive the inheritance without the risk of being eroded for unforeseen financial challenges. That's why it's important for you to protect your inheritors. Yes, you want to leave the assets behind, but protect them in the process. The most protection is educating them. You cannot, well, some people do, but let me just say this. How long is that going to last? You hear headlines and newspapers and articles and on the news. So-and-so lost land after 40 years. No, they didn't just take it from them. By the time it got to that particular generation, they were lost in the sauce. They didn't have no information. They didn't know how to manage wealth. They didn't know how to keep up with it. They didn't keep up with the property. They owed everything. Sometimes you may get people that do know this, but then it's on the next generation to teach the next generation to teach the next generation. So you never know if your heir will be involved in a lawsuit, if the inheritors outright owe money or assets. And if they're sued, they can lose the inheritance. But since the trust is a separate legal entity from the beneficiary, in the event of your heir is sued, the separation provides such better protection for the asset. And especially if you have an irrevocable trust, which is an asset protection trust. Revocable trust does not protect the asset in the event of lawsuit or creditors. So please jot that in the notes and keep that in mind. And then also, before you leave this earth, because we don't know when, it's just important to just continuously to have this conversation. Don't leave your loved ones left not only with the grievance and the pain and trying to, I guess you could say, live on, move on, carry out the legacy, but some of these children don't even have no one in place to guide them, to care for them. If you have someone in mind and say, you know what, I have a trust in place, but maybe my child is underage at the moment. What do I do? Still put them in a position that they will be able to control the wealth. But if they're underage at the moment, sometimes they have to wait, right? Or sometimes you can hire a banker trustee. Sometimes you can also put another elder in place that you highly respect that also have financial or better money management skills, right? And that you can trust them. If not, you leave your children left in this world and say, why did they leave me like this? So don't leave your children like this. And even if you look back at the generation before you and looking at the generation before them, think about it. Did they leave you anything? And if they left you anything, is it still in the family? And do you have the knowledge to keep the wealth in the family? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please take many, many notes, right? Fact check behind me, read up on this topic, because even if you have a trust in place, a lot of people commingle, they keep putting things in their name and they don't really understand that the wealth, the debt, the responsibilities, the liabilities are still connected somehow to that name. So you have to make sure you separate it. Don't allow another entity, another business, lender, corporation, try to tell you who you are. If you know what your intentions are and they say, oh, a business can't do that, a person can't do that, always look at the etymology of words. Look up the legal definition of person. A business can sue, a business can be sued, a business can actually take out wealth from an estate. You see, Verizon sued the estate. And we don't see it then, but we only see it on the suffering side. But let's look at these things from the benefiting side. You can put the trust as the beneficiary. You could put the trust as the beneficiary over your life insurance. You could put the trust as the beneficiary over your 401k, over your pension, and then your babies, your husband, your wife will be put inside the trust, and it won't show publicly that they inherit the wealth. They'll now be able to control the wealth. So it's all in how you see things. And it doesn't matter if you don't have a lot of wealth today, you are the wealth. And I say this all the time, your mind is your capital asset. So if you say, I might not have it today, but with this information, watching this webinar, you could say, I have what it takes to get started. So thank you for watching.